Hello and welcome. This is Phoenix Unleashed, and I'm your host, Shifra Hendry. And today is the first day of Rosh Chodesh Adar. It is the beginning of the month of Adar, which in this year is 2 months long. Before I say any more, let me see if I can make this video go public. There's a problem with the settings. Let's see. Give me one sec. I think I did it. Okay. All right, so without further ado, so the month of Adar is a very special month. First of all, the name, the way it's spelled in Hebrew, it's spelled with an aleph, and then the letters that spell the word dar, which means to dwell. So aleph always represents God, the one. Aleph is the one. And to dwell, the one dwelling in the world is the redemption. It's the Geula. It's the world of heaven on earth. It's the world that we all long for, the one that we call home, that missing home, that feeling of being home. So Adar is interesting. It's the month of transformation. There's so many things the Torah says about it. It is the month in which Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, was born and also died on the 7th of Adar. It's the month of my birthday. My birthday is a day before his. Anyway, it is, and what the Torah says about it is for that reason, and for other reasons probably, but for that reason, on the birthday of a person, his mazel, the spiritual source of his soul, everything has a mazel. It has a spiritual source in a higher world. The mazel, when the mazel is able to flow down more completely into the physical, that means that the spiritual source, which is so powerful, dominates the physical reality. So Moses being the first redeemer, and as it says in Kabbalah, the first redeemer is the last redeemer. The soul is passed on to the central soul, into the body of the central human being, the central soul of every generation. So literally, Mashiach, the final redeemer, is an incarnation of Moses, as every universal soul is. And because his birthday and the day of his passing, when all of his work rises to a state of elevation and catalyzes a flow of salvations and miracles into the world every year on that day. By the way, it's the 7th of Adar, and it's the first Adar. I'll explain. There are 2 Adars this year. Anyway, that it is a perfect cycle and brings about each year a tremendous flow of new divine energy specifically for miracles and redemption. Now, the mazel, the spiritual source of the first redeemer, the receiver of the Torah on behalf of all mankind, and the final ultimate redeemer, Mashiach, the righteous central soul who will connect us to the King of Kings, to God. That's the function of a Moses. That's the function of a central soul of Mashiach, to connect us to activate and spark the brilliant light of our own divine souls and our own connection with God. It's a mamutza machaber. It's a connector between heaven and earth, this soul. So this is because it's his birthday is in this month, the entire month of Adar and Yartzeit, the entire month of Adar is carrying his mazel. What's the spiritual source of that central soul? A divine world, a source of pure, infinite divinity flowing into the physical. That's what's dominant now. So the Torah is dominant. The mission of the souls of Israel is dominant, meaning it is more likely, more empowered to show up in nature. Very interesting. I'll just tell you a little bit about what it means that there are 2 months. So the Torah goes by the lunar month. You probably already know this. Maybe you don't. The Torah is counted like the moon. The souls of Israel, the Jewish people, are compared to the moon. The moon waxes and wanes, as opposed to the sun, which just shines straight out light. Regardless of what time of the year it is, it's always the same. Basically, it's coming. That's called an or yashar, a straight light, and the moon is called an or choser. It's a receiving light. Anyway, every 2 or 3 years, according to the complicated calendar, there has to be just like in a leap year in the solar calendar, every 4 years we add an extra day to February. That's 1 day every 4 years. So in the Torah calendar, because there's a pretty big gap between the lunar year of 12 months of 29 to 30 days and the solar calendar, so every 2 or 3 years we need a leap month. We add an extra month. The calendar adds an extra month to the entire year. And when that's the case, it's always the month of Adar. Interesting, right? Because Adar represents and carries the energy of transformation from the very source and the dominance of the spiritual source and purpose and redemption over everything in the physical world. The Rebbe said one time, one of the many times when there were 2 months of Adar, 60 days of Adar, he invoked the concept, the Torah concept. This has to do with, it's a little complicated if you're not familiar, but not so complicated. When, let's say you keep kosher and you have, and you don't mix milk and meat according to biblical commandment, and a tiny piece, a drop of milk will inadvertently fall into a pot of stew. Is it kosher? Do you have to throw it out? Is it not kosher? So there's a concept called batal b'shishim, that if it's a certain measure, and this doesn't apply to everything, but it's a very strong concept that if it's it's unintentional, it's less than a 60th of milk in the pot of meat, the majority of the meat status nullifies the milk status. So the Rebbe said about a year in which there are 2 months of Adar, 60 days of Adar, that it is mevatel b'shishim, it nullifies in this 60, in this spiritual quality of 60. This is all spiritual, even though it comes down into the physical. That's the whole point. So in the spiritual quality or status of 60, everything that is bilti ratzui, everything that is undesirable, unfavorable to human life and to divine purpose, can be nullified in that 60 days. But how do we nullify it? The power has to be activated. It's always about us. We are the co-creators. God shines the light and potential into the world. It's our job to activate, to co-create with it, to absorb it, to integrate it, and to use it. We are here to be co-creators. So what is the power that activates the 60 days that will be mevatel, that will nullify anything undesirable? It is the power of simcha, S-I-M-C-H-A. In English, simcha means joy. And literally it's a superpower. There's so many expressions in the Torah that talk about joy. One is simcha paritz geder, which means that joy bursts all boundaries. And here you want to think about the kind of archetypal example of somebody who, just got a huge promotion or won the lottery or got engaged, and it's stingy, thrifty, kind of contracted, held back person walks into a bar and drinks on me, everybody. It takes you out of the boundaries of self. Simcha takes you out of the boundaries of yourself, out of the boundaries of your life, out of the boundaries of your identity, which tend to very much limit the flow of your own mazel and the mazel that's attempting to come in to the world through you. So joy breaks those boundaries. Also, it's expressed as simcha paritz kol gidre gullus, that simcha, joy, busts through all of the boundaries of exile. And that's not just a global exile, also personal exile. Likewise, it's not just personal, it's also global. So the problem is also, just to add that the Rebbe said, according to his close people, there was a time after the Rebbe had a stroke where he wasn't speaking in public, but apparently he said, I heard this directly from one of his close doctors, I heard it personally, that the Rebbe said several times, and one of the last times the doctor visited him, Barov Shira Bezimra, which means with an abundance of singing and celebration. Again, simcha. What's the key out of here? I want to know. What's the key out of this matrix? So in this double month of Adar, the primary key, and really in all times, it's not the only key, but in all times it is a primary key. In this time, it is the primary key. Simcha, joy. We need to activate that power. Now, how do you do that? So that can be an elaborate discussion, but one of the ways that we do that is by doing things that make us happy and by doing things that make other people happy. Another way is by paying it forward, or however you want to express that. A few of us are talking about a possibility of creating a joy convoy, a convoy of joy. What would that look like? And many of us are celebrating. I know some people are finding this political. I'm not one of them. I am one of the people who's deeply celebrating the fact that people are hundreds of thousands of people are peacefully gathering to support each other's freedoms. It's quite remarkable. I heard yesterday that in a couple of interviews with police in Ottawa that there hasn't been one single arrest, one, even though there have been instigators. So this is something where, people have just decided, I heard a trucker saying, we'll stay for months if we have to. You want us to leave, just give people their freedoms back. That's it. So that's something that I find incredibly inspiring, especially because people all over Canada, the vast majority of people are vibing with this and are supporting it in one way or another. And it's just beautiful to see little children and their parents and truckers dancing, just to see that when people get together, and this is another big secret, and it's another thing that simcha, that joy accomplishes, that when normally as human beings, we find each other to be a threat a lot of the time. We feel like if I want the attention, someone else has it, or I would feel better about myself, but you're doing so much better than me, or you don't let me speak, or you don't listen to me, or, you took my friend, or you got my job and I don't, you got the promotion, whatever it is, you're in my space. It's normal to feel this way, but it's not healthy. We're made this way. All the things about us are made so that we can bring transformation and upliftment to those things, to reveal their true inner light. But we find each other to be a threat, and that's just part of our nature. Simcha, joy, breaks through that boundary, just like the example that I just gave of the person who comes into the bar, normally doesn't relate to other people, wants to keep himself to himself and everything he has to himself, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, everybody, drinks are on me, let's celebrate together. There is something, it's a superpower, like no lie. There's something so incredibly powerful about activating joy. So I can't tell you yet what exactly the convoy of joy will look like, and actually that's because I don't know yet. It's just being discussed, and like all incredible things, it will either happen or not, depending on whether those who would like to happen can activate themselves, and then it will either take off or not. So that's where you come in. So I would love to hear from you, right in the chat, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, or by email if you want. The best email for me is thegateofunity@gmail.com, thegateofunity@gmail.com. Anyway, I would love to hear from you if you have ideas of how a convoy of joy would work. One of the thoughts that we're having is to combine it with the Empowered Prayer Project, so people could come together in groups of 3 or 4. 4, I think, is the right number, and envision joy for each other, share joy, not just pray for each other, but perhaps make a plan for the week of every day. We're each going to, bring a gift to a neighbor, or, get online and sing a song, or create a dance party, or, dance alone in our room with joy, or, whatever it might be. And so if you have any thoughts about that, and then passing it on to other people, like every person a truck convoy, all the trucks prior to the convoy were still in the world. Most of them were in Canada, or Canada and the US. The trucks, all of them that are in this convoy, already existed. But what happened? They got together. They created no space between them. So one follows the next, 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 follows the next. There's something about that idea of taking disparate entities or people, and or even ideas, and bringing them together in a chain. And no one's the leader. It's just that it's a chain. And if one person's missing, it's a smaller chain. And when one person adds, it's a bigger chain. And the bigger it is, the more the people who are watching it want to help. People are literally bringing food and gifts and stay in my hotel for free. And it's unbelievable. And that is because one person following another, following another, following another, being followed by another, being followed by another, arouses the heart of humanity, arouses a sense of joy and being deeply moved at the power of the human spirit, and really at the sensing of what can happen when we move out of the color beyond the lines, when we move out of the box in connection with each other, with a focus and an intention, peaceful and loving, in this case joyous and giving, and miracles happen. Now, Adar, in addition to the idea of joy and activating the power to nullify the undesirable through joy, is the connection to the central soul. We are all part of that central soul. not just the souls of Israel, the souls of the generation, every soul. That's the principle of Kabbalah, that every, like Adam and Eve were one, started out as one Adam-Eve entity, and then broke off into all of humanity. And every human being who lives, who has ever lived, who will live, is like a cell in the collective body of Adam, the archetypal man. So when we connect to the central soul, in this case, the Moses, the mazel of Adar, the spiritual source of Adar, through joy, through celebration, we're connecting ourselves to our greater superstructure. And as we are cells in that collective soul, we activate that collective soul. It's reciprocal. It's like a circuit to shine more power, more consciousness, more miracles, and more joy into our individual beings and lives and into our collective. So I'd love to hear from you if you relate to this idea, if you have suggestions on how the convoy of joy could take off more easily, of things that we might do, please share them here. But whether you do or not, today is literally tonight. It's already happened in Israel. The way that the Hebrew calendar is constructed, some of the first day of the month has a special power. Some of the months, it's called Rosh Chodesh, meaning the head of the month. Some of them are not just the first day of the month, but they're the last day of the previous month. So we're in the last day of Shvat, which is already the head of the month of Adar. So this is like our ramp up. This is our prequel. We can make resolutions today, and then tonight, when the actual day one of the month of Adar comes into the world in 5782, a moment that has never happened in all history before, we can be aligned with, lean into the reality that God is already shaking up the world in order to allow for a massive metamorphosis and transformation. And through each one of us downloading, activating, making positive, empowered resolutions that we support through action and through community, getting together with others. Joy is enhanced when you're with others, 100%. That's why the joyful person wants everybody to drink, everybody to celebrate. That's why weddings are about celebrations. That's why parties, when you feel happy, party. So these are all deep principles of the human design and the divine design. But by tonight, by the time it turns dark and the first energies of the 60 incredibly powerful transformational 60 days comes in, be ready. Be ready with at least something. And bigger is better, more is better, sooner is better. But anything that you can do, smile at somebody in your family when you're not in a good mood. Say, hey, honey, you look so cute today. That already is bringing joy. I just watched a video somebody posted on one of the WhatsApps I'm on. I've seen it before, but not for a few years, of some guy in the subway, crowded subway car. Everybody's grim, everybody's struggling under the burden of getting to work and whatever. And some guy takes out his tablet and he starts laughing. And then people first start like staring at him like, what's going on, weirdo? And then like a couple girls start to smile a little bit because he doesn't stop. He keeps escalating. And then a few people start chuckling. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. When my kids were younger, sometimes we'd sit around the table, and there was a period where my son would just suddenly start to go. At first it sounded really silly, but then it would start to make us laugh. And the more anybody laughed, the more everybody laughed, and the more everybody laughed, the more everybody laughed, until we were all hysterical. And it does actually work this way. So that's another version of a convoy of joy, a convoy of simcha, where any action that you take, instead of responding or reacting or taking in the weaponized fear, the doom and gloom, the burden of being on the subway, whatever it is, put something super powerful. And when I say super powerful, I mean a superpower. Put something super powerful into the system. You can be a broadcaster and you're working with God. You're working with the central soul. You're working with humanity. You're working with the convoy. Put something joyful into the system. Not based on how you feel. I mean, if you feel it, you'll do it even more, right? But even when you don't. And this has to be a clear resolution and decision for each of us. So again, please share. What is it that you can see that might make a difference? It can, again, be as simple as, one year I actually made, this isn't necessarily so simple, but I made dinner for my family. I was making a really good dinner, which I didn't normally do. Spare ribs, I remember, and I don't know what else. And I made it for 2 other people. I just brought it over to their houses, and it was very special. I've only done that once, with those 2 people. Like I said, a smile, put on music and dance when you don't feel it. Look in the mirror and tell yourself how beautiful you are. I love your eyes. I love your nose. I love your smile. Say that to somebody else, see what happens. Invite somebody to join your social plans who might not otherwise be invited, who you wouldn't normally connect with. Just say hi to somebody that you don't usually speak to. Maybe say hi to everybody. And there are probably millions of things, that big and small, that we could think of to do. And we need to think of ways of how to actually turn this into a convoy. So again, one follows the next, another follows you, another follows them, another follows them, until we are moving through these 60 days in a way that changes reality for good. Remember, according to the Rebbe, the 60 days of the double month of Adar in the leap year, which is now, has the power to nullify every undesirable thing in the world. Are there undesirable things in the world? I mean, from my perspective, yes, there are. Do I want to nullify them? I so do. This is the most auspicious time that could be. Also, the idea of mazel. When I define mazel as the spiritual source of your soul, the spiritual source of the Redeemer's soul, the spiritual source of the earth, is, higher realms. So in Adar, the mazel is dominant. The mazel of Israel, of the mission, of the Torah, of the redemption is dominant. Of Moses, of the Redeemer, of Mashiach, dominant, meaning that it comes out in the physical to such a degree that actually, in terms of halacha, of Jewish law, Torah law, if you have to go to a court case, you should do it in the month of Adar, because different mazel. When we say mazel tov, it's been translated as good luck, but what it means is your soul power should dominate the physical reality. That's what we need right now in the world. The forces that are fighting against us, this is Gog and Magog. This is the final war. I have no doubt of it. That is prophesied in Torah as a prelude to the redemption, uprooting our limited vision of reality. It can be won peacefully. It's already been too not peaceful, but it can be won peacefully and safely if we look past it to where it is meant to take us and invoke that now. Become actors in that now. So what is the spiritual reality that needs to come in? Look deeper. Connect to the source. See the redemption unfolding. Connect with your soul. Connect with someone else's soul. We're moving into a world, ultimately, what's being birthed is a world of joy, of miracles in heaven on earth. Lean into that. What would it feel like right now? How would you behave? What would your facial expression be? What would be the words that you would be saying to yourself and others? Like 2 days ago, I'm pretty moody right now. Not this second, but 2 days ago I woke up and felt really constricted. The next day, yesterday, I woke up and I felt like sunshine in my heart. It was so special, especially because the previous day I felt like I was struggling. That I opened the door, just came out of me spontaneously, and I'm like, "Hello, day!" I'm shouting. I'm in a place where I'm temporarily in the condo where there's people around. Hello, day, hello, sky, hello, trees. It just came out. And that's what joy does. And when one does it, because it's connecting to that higher spiritual source where we're all connected, where we're all one already, it will operate like a wildfire, like a convoy, if enough of us do it. If enough of us start laughing when, we see that guy in the subway laughing, then it will take off and no one will be able to stop it. If 1 or 2 people chuckle, better than nothing, but not as good as it could be. So really, this depends on you and every one of us. Who are you going to be in the matter? Last year, I did do a project for Adar. I worked on it, and some people responded to it, but clearly, it was not enough. And the way that things happen, the way that movements happen, what changes the world from our perspective, our part, it's a movement. When things become a movement, what creates a movement? One person following another, following another, following another, being followed by another, followed by another. A movement is when you do it too. A movement is when you decide that you're going to be the center of the universe. And just do what you can, but you take it seriously with laughter and you make it real. So if you say yes to this, then see if you can get the next person to also say yes to it. It'll be a lot easier when they feel the joy and happiness and love radiating from you. And again, if you have to fake it, because it's only the superficial part of us that gets affected by moods and by all the weaponized fear and all of that. So we want to create a movement, and creating a movement is not top down. It's bottom up. It's where each person is like, I'm doing this. I'm doing it in the ways that I can. And I'm doing it every day for 60 days. I'm not going to stop. Even when I feel gloomy, that's when I'm going to do it more. And whether that means doing something again to make yourself happy, someone else happy, get up and dance, tell a joke, listen to a joke, or just plaster a fake smile on your face until it becomes real. And studies show that that does change your physiology, actually, and it doesn't take very long. We want to move ourselves from the victim stance in Adar, when we're connected to the source, the mazel, and it's dominant. We want to move ourselves from victims to co-creators, from receiving what's coming at us faster and faster, and whatever we do with that, to pushing new, divine, joyful light into the system. And that means you, and you, and you, and me, and all of us, each in our own place. Each of us is the center of the world. In Adar, we can reveal that for real. Okay, take care, everybody. See you next week, same time, same place. Unleash your inner phoenix.